Hello and welcome to the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, Wednesday, April 6th, 2016. First order of business in the absence of Dee Jernigan and Eddie Miller is we need to elect a chairman for this meeting, and I'll open it up for suggestions.
I'd like to nominate Eddie Swellman.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a suggestion, and might not be the best one, but it's what we've picked. We'll open it up for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Like sign. Okay, we'll take care of this then.
Congratulations.
Okay. I didn't prepare for this, so first order of business today is to take care of the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dr. Bonner, you always do such a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll nominate you to do that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's please bow for prayer, and then we'll follow with the pledge. Father, we are grateful for your presence in our lives and in the life of this community. We join one another as community leaders to grow deeper in our faith and trust in you. Bless this meeting to your will and your service. It is in the name of Jesus Christ that we pray. Amen. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And yes, that was Stephen Shirley who did the pledge correctly, and the rest of us do it incorrectly.
I'm going to get you all there.
We'll get there one day.
Under God.
First order of business is Lanny Goodwin, and I think you've got an introduction this morning.
I do. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, I'm proud to introduce the new tennis pro, Mr. John Criss. John is a native of Tennessee, grew up in Knoxville, has a long and impressive resume, including, John, if you'd like to come to the podium. He was a collegiate coach. He played tennis at the University of Tennessee and then went on to be head coach at 3 major universities, including University of Alabama and finally the University of Tennessee. He was head tennis coach there. Moved into private, has been at 3 different private clubs, serving in the capacity of tennis director, and latest at Norfolk, Virginia. So we are really pleased to have John and his expertise on staff now and at Adams Tennis Center and already starting to make an impact. So, John, welcome. We're really pleased to have you on staff. And if you'd like to say something, I told him to hold it to 20 minutes if he wanted to. He smiled at me when I said that. So, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Goodwin. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And as a native Tennessean, I grew up in Knoxville. It's great to be back home for me. So I'm joining a great team over at the Adams Tennis Complex, led by Gary Arvitt and Casey Neal. And there's a lot of great staff over there. And the folks who use that facility have just been really warm and welcoming to me so far. And so it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to creating a lot of great programs and trying to offer tennis opportunities to all the citizens of the Murfreesboro area, and that's what I love to do. That's my passion. I hope I'll see some of you out there on the tennis courts, but it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, John. Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Welcome.
And now I'll regress, and I'll go back to the approval for the minutes of the March 2nd, 2016 meeting for Parks and Recreation. Mitzi did a fantastic job of preparing them. And are there any changes or suggestions? If not, we'll open it up for a motion for approval.
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
We've got a motion and an appropriate second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the minutes for the March 2nd meeting are approved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
one thing I failed to mention, we do have a meet and greet set up at Adams Tennis Center for to meet Mr. Chris Friday from 4 to 6.
Okay.
So for the general public would like to come out and meet Mr. John Chris, our new tennis pro, from 4 to 6 at the Adams Tennis Center.
Okay, fantastic, and be a great opportunity to meet John, and certainly anybody who hadn't seen the new tennis facility, be sure and try and get by. It'll be an excellent time to come out and see the facility.
Mr. Goodwin, if you don't mind, what is Mr. Caress? What is his? I know he's the new tennis pro out there, but does he do private lessons? What is his capacity out there?
He will do both private and group, and he will also be over all of the other tennis professionals. I know John has been talking to others this week, trying to build a staff, and we do that under different capacities, so to speak. But he will be over the tennis program, be working with the USTA, United States Tennis Association, on coordination of those activities, both locally, regionally, and state, nationally. He'll be working with the university in terms of coordinating different types of tennis tournaments, etc. And then part of his charge is to create new programs and bring in new tourism opportunities for tennis tournaments and so forth. So he's got a big job ahead of him, but we feel like he's going to do a great job for us.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the LPRF grant application and approval for restrooms. That can be very important. Pavilions, support facilities for the Jordan Farm soccer field, practice fields, and Angela Jackson will be giving us a report on that.
Thank you, Mr. Smotherman. What I am seeking today is approval to move forward with the application and with the Phase 2 of the Jordan Farm soccer practice field. I'm going to talk more about the grant application itself, and then Mr. Laird is here to answer questions that are more soccer related and in reference to the facility itself. A little bit of background on the approvals that we have so far with this project. March of last year, this commission approved a proposal for a new soccer practice site to be located at the Jordan Farm property. On April 16th, 2015, Murfreesboro City Council approved the contract with Lowson Associates for the design and the development of the construction documents and the construction oversight of that facility. LOS has developed that concept plan, held public meetings for public input, and the site location was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The project was included in the 2015 Capital Improvement Program, and on February 11, 2016, Murfreesboro City Council approved the reimbursement resolution for the A&E services and the cost of construction for Phase 1 of the project. Now, that Phase 1, which is what we're currently working on, that includes the field and the support parking, but it does not include the restroom facilities, which, as Mr. Smotherman mentioned, is an important part of any good park space. So what we'll be doing at the completion of Phase 1 and before Phase 2 is constructed, on whatever timeline that is to, of course, use portable toilets at that location. The timing now for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation TDEC grant cycle is currently underway. There is a local Parks and Recreation Fund grant. This is a grant process that we have participated in successfully for several different projects. It is a very intensive process, but it also has really brought a lot to Murfreesboro and allowed us to do some great projects. If awarded, the funding that we're looking to do is to proceed with the Phase 2 that Jordan Farm soccer complex, soccer practice fields. The Phase 2 will include sewer, the fire service lines, the water services, the fire hydrant, water meter, backflow preventer, the associated things with that. And then also, of course, the restroom itself with a pavilion is a part of that, like a picnic shelter area, as well as sidewalks, plaza, and site furnishings. The grant cycle itself is a 50% match. The maximum funding of this grant is $250,000. The preliminary opinion of probable cost that's been provided to us for Phase 2 is $592,950. So if funded, the grant would reduce the city cost from that project from $593,000 to $342,950. And then that funding would be what the city would pay out of that capital improvement program that is currently allocated. So what I'd like to do now is, of course, answer any questions about the grant, about the facility, and seek approval for to proceed with that grant application and the project itself.
If we weren't, I don't know how the grants are awarded or not, but if we didn't win it, would it be something we'd be eligible to reapply next year? Do they have rolling grant options?
How it's funded and the appropriations for that, there's no guarantee that there would be funding next year through this cycle. If we did not proceed with this, if we were not awarded with this, could we seek additional grant opportunities either through TDEC or through another route, possibly, depending on what's available. And the criteria for a lot of grant cycles, especially when it comes to facilities, to building projects, there's a lot of different considerations for a successful grant application. This is a good fit for this application. With LPRF funding, our most recent project was the Gladys Blanton Park, formerly Westview Mini Park. That was through this grant cycle. You can only have one project open at a time, so we weren't eligible to apply for the next LPRF grant until we had closed out that one. Kids Castle was LPRF, several other projects as well.
What about if we don't get the grant? Is the city still willing to, I guess, take just pay for the whole thing?
The project initially has been drawn out to have 2 phases, and so our original plan was to develop Phase 1, which would be 6 regulation soccer fields, parking areas, and then Phase 2 would come the following year. So that was built into capital to try to satisfy that requirement. If we're not able to sustain this grant, it would go on into our next budget year or capital budget year and would be funded the following year.
Well, it'd be for consideration for council
Okay.
to
So it
look
has to go
at
back
for
over.
funding, but that funding's not appropriated right now.
Okay.
But the plan was, from what it sounds like, the plan was always Phase 1, construction of the fields, Phase 2, construction of the bathroom,
Right.
and peripheral equipment. And this just happens, fortunately for us, to fall at a time for our Phase 2.
Correct.
Right.
Well, then let's...
It does, and when you look at when the money is allocated for the grant, and we look at what projects that we think are eligible to apply for, and we look at that criteria, we start, because it does require the match. We start with where do we already have the match appropriated. We don't want to ask for something and then have to go outside of those budget requests to ask for more. We want to look at if we have $100,000 planned for a project, can we do a $200,000 project, or can we only have 50 and hit that 50% match and kind of really work the planning around the availability of those funds and where that fits in the funds that we already have planned and in the projects that we're already working on.
Well, we do know that tourism is very important to our community, and these soccer fields are part of that tourism, and that the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development is offering up to 20 statewide grants, and we're just hoping that we get one of them if this goes through.
So everything to gain and
Well-
nothing to lose.
Well, let me clarify, because we're actually coming to you for two different grants. We're going to talk about the tourism grant
Here in a minute.
next, but also true.
Okay.
Right. But yes, in the nothing to lose piece, absolutely.
But it does apply that we don't have anything to lose by applying for the grant, and
No, sir.
Absolutely.
and we do feel
And
pretty
we're very
confident that
qualified in this application. I think with the intended use of this facility, it meets most all of the qualifications and requirements.
I move to approve.
I second, absolutely.
we've got a motion to approve and an appropriate second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Next item of business is the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development Grant, and as I referred to, this one will be taken care of by Lanny Goodwin. Lanny?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is something that Mr. Williams, Nate Williams, has been working on. But there are, like you said, 20 statewide grants. It goes to the community or to the county. I know that our CVB board pulled all of the communities together. At the end of the day, they chose Murfreesboro to be the one that would apply for it. What we're looking at is applying for the $50,000, matching with $50,000, and having a project for Cannonsburg and putting in a permanent stage there for our entertainment and drawing of our tourism. I know that's something that when it comes to Uncle Dave Macon Days, Pioneer Days, or other big events that we have at Cannonsburg, that's one of the areas we really lack in is staging. So we're looking at applying, hopefully receiving that grant and putting in something more with more permanency for providing that entertainment stage. With that, I entertain any questions that you may have.
Well, I do think a permanent stage at Cannonsburg would be a real asset. There's no doubt about that with, like you said, Pioneer Days and Uncle Dave Macon and the other events that take place. It'd be a significant saving to them not have to pay for a stage. And so it benefits the people who are doing the presentations, but it also adds quality of life to our community when we look at the events that do take place there and how much they mean to this community. Is there a motion to accept this or approve, go after this grant?
I'd like to move to approve and also thank all those other communities that had a unanimous backing of this project.
A second.
Okay, we've got a motion and appropriate second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lanny. Okay, the next item that we're going to discuss is the commission tour, and that's talking about the Parks and Recreation Commission. And it has been suggested by some, including myself, that we go out as a commission sometimes after a board meeting and visit some of the sites that we often talk about and make sure that we all understand a more clear view of the things that we vote on. I know the Planning Commission has done this in the past where we'll take a rover bus ride and go around and look at different venues and stuff that and plans that are taking place. And Angela Jackson has been kind of working on this, I think, for me. And Angela, what comments do you have on this subject?
Where do you want to go? Let's have a road trip.
Okay.
I love the idea. Would love some feedback on what you all would like to. Where you would like to go? What kind of agenda and itinerary we can line up for you? What we were thinking is, if it works for this group, after our May meeting next month, to end this meeting and then travel.
I would like to just amend that suggestion to either a June or July trip. as opposed to May.
Okay.
Yeah, we're okay with that. Couple of things you may want to think about. We've got some great partnership agreements. Oakland's Discovery Center is partnerships that we have, public-private partnerships. We could visit those sites, talk to you about roles of each one of those. We've got sporting facilities all through the city. We can visit those. We can talk to you about what we're looking at if the West Park does come available in terms of where we need to add different sporting venues. And then we can also visit recreational sites and talk to you about some of our programming that we're doing, some of the things that we have planned in the future for community events, outdoor recreation programs, where we're going with Outdoor Murfreesboro. And then we've got 2 different trail projects, one that's underway right now and one that will be underway probably by the time if we wait to June or July, that we could take you and show you those different trail projects and talk to you about those. So we've got a lot going on. Just to give you an idea, you may want to do a couple of trips, but we'll be glad to set those up and talk to you about where we're at with all of those.
Yeah, it actually will give us an opportunity, I think, to get from a board's perspective a better idea of what the vision of our leadership in the Parks and Recreation Department is feeling, and their vision of what they would like to see, the direction that you would like for us to be going. And because we see it on the agendas and stuff at the approval level, but we very rarely get the opportunity to actually go out and see a facility and see what it is that you would like to see it evolve into. And I think that would be advantageous to us when it comes to consideration of, trying to justify not only the need, but also justifying the expense that's involved with it. So is there a June or July that the board would prefer? It doesn't matter to me. Originally we had talked about April, and then because we hadn't discussed it, we moved it to May, and certainly we want as many people to attend the outing as possible.
June?
June's good for me.
Sure.
Okay, following the June meeting then, does that work? Okay. Okay, so if you would, on your calendars, just be sure and mark after the June meeting. I'm going to a dentist appointment after today's meeting, so it has to be better than a dentist appointment.
We'll do our best.
There you go. Next item. We don't need to vote on that, do we? Or do we?
No, I just wanted to just give y'all a little bit of information. Angela had asked me the question how the open meetings law comes into play with taking tours, and there is an exception, so it doesn't have to be advertised meeting when y'all go on the tour. Tours and inspections are an exception. It's just that you can't, it's more for informational purposes. You can't take any votes while you're on the tour. You'd have to come back and do any of those type of actions in an actual meeting.
Okay.
But with that in mind, is there a way, in the hope or interest of sharing with the community our plans, is there a way to say where we're going in advance of the meeting itself, so that if anybody actually wants to join or is interested in hearing as well?
Ms. Baker, correct me if I'm wrong, but could we just do a continuation of the meeting and not close the meeting and leave the gavel open until after the tour?
Yes.
And the Rover bus generally seats at least 24 people, and I think we've got maybe 12 people here today, so I think there'll be plenty of room for anybody from the public that would show up and say, I'd like to go on the tour, and certainly anybody who would like to come would be welcome to go. Yes. Because we're not trying to violate the sunshine law by any sense. So we're trying to just be more open and transparent and make sure that everybody understands what it is that we're, from a vision standpoint, what we're discussing, and we're certainly not going to be discussing anything, I don't think, on this meeting as far as voting on anything that would be trying to mislead anybody or deceive anyone as to what the intentions are. The intentions are all good.
Right, right. And that was what Angela and I discussed, is rather than adjourn the meeting before you go on the tour, just go on the tour and then come back and adjourn the meeting at the end of the tour. That would be fine.
Okay. So we'll plan on that for June. Okay, upcoming events. Becky Johnson, sure you've got a couple of them. It's that time of year, isn't it?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And I do have a few programs and events to talk about. The first one, we have Murfreesboro Track and Field. That is for ages 9 to 14. It will be held Mondays at 5:30 p.m. at Riverdale High School Track. There is a $25 fee for it, and we are taking registrations now for that program. Then we have Duck Days. That will be Sunday, April 17th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at the Gateway Island. It's free. It's for everyone to come on out and learn about ducks and play some bird-themed games and figure out, what kind of food they eat and all that entails. So that is Duck Day, Sunday, April 17th from 1 to 2:30 at Gateway Island. Then we have our 40th annual Pioneer Days and the 3rd annual Backyard Barbecue Festival. That will be Saturday, April 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Cannonsburg Village. It is free to the public to attend. There is, if they would like to purchase food and any of the vendors, there's fees for those, but it's free for all to attend at Cannonsburg on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 to 4. Then we have a Sunday Symphony in the Park. This is sponsored by Friends of the Greenway. It's with Tennessee Valley Winds. That will be Sunday, May 1st at Old Fort Park, Pavilion number 3. It is at 2 p.m., and that is also free for all ages. Barfield Beach Party. We have over 80 tons of sand that goes out to Barfield Park, and we have a beach party before they use that sand for our athletic fields. So that is Friday, May 6th at 5 p.m. It is free, and it's for all ages, so we encourage everybody to come out to a beach party, because where else are you going to find one of those in Middle Tennessee? Then we have Free Swim Lesson Day. That is Saturday, May 7th from 8 a.m. till noon. It's at Patterson Park Pool. It's free for everybody to attend, but they do have free swim lessons for those ages 3 to 13. And this is very important, especially if your children have never had any lessons. We encourage them to sign up for this program because it is a concern with children and drowning. So we'd really like to get as many kids out as possible to Free Swim Lesson Day and get a free lesson. We are signing up for our summer camps. I'm happy to say that probably about half of them are full. So if you are still looking for things for your children to do this summer, I encourage you to check out our summer camp programs and sign up for them. Summer will be here before we know it. And as for all of our camp information, programs, and events, you can get our Rec Connection brochure. You can download it at murfreesborotn.gov/parks. You can follow our Facebook pages, or you can always call our main office at 615-890-5333. All right. That's the highlights.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Certainly a lot going on. I think that's the end of the agenda for today. Does anybody have any comments or questions about anything that's going on with Parks and Recreation before we adjourn?
Thomas, you're sitting over in the corner, and Lanny, I wanted to share with the board, we've spent a lot of time the last year talking about Siegel Park and the turf management and getting it back to where we wanted it to be. They did a lot of work over the summer and in winter, and I just want to share, we had the Bash in the Borough big soccer tournament this past weekend. Most of you are aware it rained a lot on Thursday, and I was very nervous about how that was going to affect the fields. I was actually out of town this weekend, so I didn't get to see it, but I got to work on the fields Monday. I got to ref, and then I refed again yesterday on a different field, and the fields look fantastic. They look and feel. They don't just look good, but running on them, they are in as good a shape, especially after a big tournament. They look in as good a shape as I've seen them in some time. So we can be proud of the work that we approved, and the work was done, and Shane and his crew have done just a phenomenal job. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you. They have worked tremendously hard on those fields, and still work to do to get them where we want them. But like you said, they really, really look good.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Well, thank you all for attending today. Very good meeting. I think everybody just about had a comment or had some input, except maybe Dr. Gilbert today. And I think she was saving the best for last. She's going to explain to us the benefits of 10 ready, I think, today.
I think it's time to adjourn.
Oh, okay. That's it. Thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.